Hello, and as we can see, we've got Photoshop open. What we're going to do today is create a tree. So we're going to go for a nice large web, and I'm going to rename it as tree asset. And make sure you got artworks turned off. That can be really annoying. Once you got that, just switch the create button. And as usual, create a new layer. And what we're going to do, we're going to get red and the brush tool, and we're just going to create a kind of a guide to follow with our tree. It's always good to make your rough sketch so you don't have to think about it when you're doing your more developed piece. Also, you can switch between the brush tool and the eraser tool. The shortcut for those is B for the brush and E for the eraser. We have our base, which I'm going to do as a circle for now, and I'm just going to draw my tree straight, the trunk, and just pulling out the branches. Now, always remember that the branches always go in an upwards direction towards the sun. If it doesn't have access to the sun in certain areas, it may go to the side, etc. But this one has full access. And the job is trying to make sure it doesn't look too the same, because with trees, they're unique, they have bends. Really, to make it look like a really good tree is the imperfections. The shortcut to undo things is Ctrl-Z. Or if you want to go further back in your history, Ctrl-Alt and Z. Once you're happy with branches, you can just do some random circles to be the leaves, which we're going to do as big bushes. Then getting the eraser tool, I don't want a straight tree, they never grow that straight. They look fake, but I'm going to add a bit of a bend to mine. Now, as you can see here, we've got a bend there and a little bit of an accidental bend here, which I'm going to keep in. Sometimes when you're doing things really rough, you can come up with wonderful accidents. And next, I'm just going to fix up the base, because we never see trees with a beautiful circle unless it was done intentionally. So I'm going to draw out the roots and add a few more bumps here and there, or just emphasize a few of them, and just flicking out the base of the branches. And there we have it. We have a very nice looking rough sketch of the tree. So I'll rename this as guide and create a new layer. And now we're going to pick our colors. Now always remember, when you're doing your colors, don't just change how dark and light it is, change the hue as well. So I'm going to go for a quite a orangey brown color. I think it'll be the base of the tree, so just gonna draw a nice little circle there. Actually, I'll make it a little bit more orange. I might make my color swatch area easy to pick. If you're working with a mouse, it will be easy to pick, but sometimes with a tablet it can be a bit annoying. So I'm gonna make that a little bit more orange. Yeah, that's a good color. And changing the hue and going darker and carrying that on for a few colors. You don't have to go the exact same color as me. Yours can be more of a greeny one, or you can have less saturation, so it's a bit more gray, whichever you feel more comfortable with. And now I'm going to go for very much a bluey green color for the leaves. If you want to, you can also do autumn leaves, which is quite fun. Now you want to make sure you end with quite a nice dark color to add that contrast in there. So going very much light to dark really helps. So main colors I'll probably be using is this very light one and very dark one for the leaves. And with the trees I'll be using those two ones. Show me how well, those are two main ones. I might use the middle one, we'll see how it goes. So picking out the first brown color, I'm going to create a new layer, call it trunk base, and with it I'm going to draw out my trunk. First of all, making sure that I've got a hard edge brush, and mine's fairly smooth at the moment. You can make your brush bigger. Now if you find your brush doesn't have that smooth edge, go to brush settings and just changing the spacing. So I'm actually going to show you what happens when it's not fully spaced. You get these bump here like it's a bit of an old caterpillar. But if you make sure it's on 0%, you get that nice smooth look to it. Now usually when you draw things, especially with tablets, it's probably easier to draw it going down from up to down. And switch shape using E is my shortcut to switch between the eraser. Never forget to use your eraser. And don't worry if you make mistakes. You saw I added a flat edge on that trunk. I'm actually going to keep that. I think that looks interesting. Again, you can make lovely mistakes. You don't have to stick exactly to the guide. And you may want to undo a few times, so yes, do not be afraid to use Ctrl-Z, do not be afraid to use the eraser. That's what they're there for, and everyone makes mistakes. In fact, with some artists on YouTube, they have a challenge of trying not to erase and trying not to use the undo button. Once you're happy, you can just fill in the rest. I might speed this process up a bit. Now with the tree chunks, if you've got a drawing tablet, turn on the pressure sensitivity so you can get those nice little sharp tipped lines. If you're using a mouse, don't worry, you can get a similar effect just by using the eraser just to sharpen those edges, thin them out a bit, just make it a bit more interesting. You can really thin them out, but don't make them too sharp. Then once you've done that, you can go back to the branches and just make the bottoms a bit wider. And you can see that I got nice little accidents with the eraser tool. I'm going to again keep that in there and add some more bumps here and there. And you may feel like, oh, I need a new branch here and there, so go for it. And there we go. I'm really happy with my tree trunk base. I'm happy with the shape of it. So now we're going to ignore it and going to work on the leaves. So I'm going to pick my really dark color and get a circle tool and just make a circle. This is just going to act as a guide for when we're placing our leaves and a kind of a nice background as well. Then create another circle and change its fill color to your lightest green color that you picked earlier. Using the move tool and making sure that show transformation controls is turned on, we can zoom in, Control plus, and just simply tilt the shape a bit. Once you're happy, click the tick button. And then we're going to use this direct select tool, which is hidden under the text tool. Once you click, you then click again and move it around. And then if you hold Alt on the handles, you can change it from a smooth edge to giving it a sharp edge, which we want for leaves. So I'm going to do this on both ends and just adjust it till it's kind of a leaf shape. Remember, you don't have to stop until you're completely happy with it. And there you go, I'm happy with the shape, and I'm going to name it Leaf Base. I could right click and rasterize this, but I don't need to. I'm just going to create a new layer and make it a clipping mask by pressing Alt and clicking on the lines between the layers. and I'm going to click my gradient. Now the problem is it's using my dark green and my white. If I click this arrow here or press X, I can switch the background and foreground color. Remember, the foreground color is your active color, so I'm going to switch it to white and pick my light green, and as you can see at the top, it changes my gradient. So then I can go to my leaf, and on the clipping mask layer, click and drag, and ooh, no, I don't want it that direction. I want it, the tip to be quite light. It's not showing enough of the light green there, so I'm going to undo and go a little bit there. Yeah, that's perfect. Now creating another clipping mask and pressing X to switch to my dark color. Just going to create a nice line. Now I've got pressure sensitivity turned off so I can help people who are using a mouse instead of a tablet, but if you're using a tablet you can turn pressure sensitivity on. If you're using a mouse, draw a line, then get the eraser tool to create that sharp bit. We're just creating the center spine of the leaf, and when you're happy, there you go. That's what hopefully it should look like. If you want to be creative, you can also add little veins to it as well, but it's not really necessary. Now I'm going to create a clipping mask and I'm going to put it underneath the center of the leaf, and we're going to be changing the brush up a bit. I want to change the hardness down to 0% and the opacity I'm going to set to 30. We're going to use it very much a painting method, and here I've got my hard color. You see if I draw, it slowly builds up that color. Using Alt, I can pick my colors and just paint it in. Again, this can be done with either a mouse or brush, and gonna make sure the center goes a bit darker. And I can pick the light colors in between and just basically push the colors around to create the general shape I want. And you just keep this process up until you're completely happy with your leaf. So I'm going to sped this up a little bit. And there you go. I'm really happy with the way this leaf looks. So now I need to grab it and move it over there. Oh, okay, that's not working. Okay, let's try the base. If I move it, oh. Yeah, as you can see, because of all the clipping layers, I can't move everything at once easily. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to select all these layers and I'm going to right click on the layers and convert to Smart Object. This will allow me to move it as one piece. I'm going to rename this as leaf, and I can move it around as so. I can, there's an issue here. If I try and rotate it, it gives me this giant box, which is really not going to help. So I'm going to have to go into my leaf and edit it a bit. So you do that by double clicking on the smart object. It will give you a message, say okay, and as we can see, the gradient layer, if I undock this, you can see the gradient took the whole size of the screen instead of just the leaf. Now this is a nice easy fix. I'm going to zoom in a bit and get my marquee tool. You can press M on your keyboard and just try and match the size. There you go. Go as close to the leaf as you can without getting too close. Oh, I cut off a little bit. You can hold shift to add more to it. Do it one more time. Now I'm happy with that, so I'm just going to go over to image, crop, and as you can see, it cuts it down to a nice small size. I can then save it by going File, Save, or you can press Ctrl S, and I can close that. So now, if I change his leaf, you can see that it's going to that nice small size. Basically all I did was cut down the canvas size of my leaf to be a nice small one, matching the general shape of it. So now is the fun bit of placing it on my base and then duplicating it and creating more leaves. A shortcut to duplicate is Ctrl-Alt, as you can see on there, and then you can click on your leaf and just create another one. And if I want to, I can adjust them, etc. Just make them look a bit different. Now I'm going to press Ctrl-T to kick in the transformation, then right click and flip, so I can flip the leaf over and start doing on the other side as well. So really you're just going to keep adding leaves on top of this until you get more or less to the top. And along the way or afterwards you can just make a few adjustments so it's not, the leaves don't all just look the same. It's nice to have like a little bit of difference in there. And when you duplicate you can sometimes rearrange the order, etc. So I am going to speed this up a bit. Now the important part here is when we get near to the top, we're going to have the leaves quite small and they're kind of going to come together in a center, but that's not right on top. There you go, now you can edit the leaves, make them unique. Now what I want to do, I want to start grouping them into sections. So I'm going to click and then hold shift and click the little leaves in the center, then click the group button and that'll be group 1. So I'm going to hide that. Oh, there's a leaf I wanted to add into there, I'll just drag that in there. And there you go, I've got groups. So I'm going to go around and keep adding things into groups. And there you go, I've got kind of like 4 waves of leaves leading up to the center bit at the top. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to double click and add a color overlay to it. Basically what we're going to do, we're going to darken the leaves underneath and gradually build it up to be lighter on top. So I'm going to pick out my dark color. Then I'm going to go through my blending options just to see which one looks the best. I do this by selecting the blending and just going down with my arrow keys. I find that nice and fast. Hard light looks pretty good, but maybe a bit too harsh. I think I'll stick with multiply. And now I can right click and copy that layer style and just simply paste it on the other 2 groups. Now don't worry if you've got more than 4 groups, you could have 5 or 6 depending on how many layers of leaves you've got. It doesn't matter. And because I've got 4 layers, I'm going to do mine in smaller increments. And just give that a look that it builds up gradually, and voila, we have a really nice looking tree bush. So I'm going to select all my layers and convert that into a smart object, which I'll call bush. And now I can move it around as one piece, and I'm actually going to make duplicates of this and just place it on those guide circles I created earlier. I can also manipulate and transform, making bigger, smaller, even rotate them just to make them a little bit different. I'm also going to do now, I'm going to paste my mask layer, or my layer style, and just going to tweak it a bit because I want to give the impression that it's darker. And I'm going to put on vivid light because I think I'll make the colors a bit more pop a bit. It might be best if I copy that style and then I can just paste it on there. Always go for the quickest option first. Now I don't want these to be as dark, so I'm just going to bring it down a smidge. Make sure the side ones match. And there you have it. I am really happy with those leaves. Now we can turn our attention back to the trunk of the tree. So I'm going to add a clipping mask layer. And basically we're going to do the same thing we did to the leaf earlier in that painting tool, picking the different colors and blending them, etc. So always remember, because the branches are underneath the trees, they're going to be the darkest with the shadows. That looks a bit too light, so I'm actually going to go for my darkest color. Oops. Put that back there. Sometimes you may find that certain colors look a bit, don't pop as much as others, so you may have to go for, change things from what you originally planned. And they're just going down the side and building up the color as you go along. So I'm going to speed this process up, and as I say, just keep adding. You can undo, erase, pick those colors, etc. And you just keep at it until the tree looks the way you want it to. And don't be afraid to add some new delves and bumps in there to make it again unique and different. Okay, I'm really happy with my tree, but I need a darker color to really add that contrast. So going back to my color layer, make sure you're on your correct layers there and just add a really dark color in there. And then readjusting the brush by reducing the hardness and putting it to 30% occupancy. And simply just going for those darker areas and making them even more darker. So again, I'm going to sped this up. Now when you get to the branches, yeah, you want to darken the tips, but you don't want to go all the way down, you just want to add it to the edges. Now this branch I'm going to make completely dark because it's going to give the impression it's behind the others, giving that sense of dimension. And when it comes to shading, never be afraid to try something new and different. And there you have it, there's my tree. Quite happy. Always pull back and have a look at the whole thing. And now I can just hide my layers. Now I've got my tree just the way I like it. So again, to make it easy to edit, I can select all those layers and, you guessed it, convert it to a smart object. So now I can move it as one piece. I can even rotate it, adjust it, etc. and duplicate it to make multiple trees. And in essence, you could create a nice simple forest out of this. I can go inside it and edit it. I can double click on the bushes, the leaves, etc. Again, cropping the canvas, that was a bit too much there. And yes, double clicking, you can go right into the leaf. And there you have it. You have a beautiful tree, which is easy to edit, non-destructive, the best example of lossless compression. So hopefully you enjoyed this, and happy tree making.